I would like to talk about an alternative to universal basic income. And this is an idea that I don't actually think would work in practice, but I think we need more creative economic ideas on the table. And therefore, this is definitely a White Rabbit video, where the White Rabbit is something, it's a reference to Alice in Wonderland. It's something I bring onto the channel whenever I want to just go down a rabbit hole and look at really kooky, weird, wacky economic ideas. So first, where is this idea coming from? And obviously, a lot of people are talking about universal basic income. And I think one of the inspirations for that is because a lot of people believe that artificial intelligence will put large parts of the population out of work. And people are afraid of that. And they think actually when these people are put out of work, it's because the productivity, the economic value that was created by those people can still exist without those jobs. I want to explain how I got to this vision of an alternative to UBI. And it started by me thinking about UBI and the value of it and some of the problems with it. So one hope for UBI is that it would free people up such that if they wanted to just live on the very basic income of the UBI and put their energy toward grassroots causes and social causes that they believed in, then it would allow people to do that. And these visions could be, okay, I'd like to put my energy toward artistic work or toward a community garden for like a sustainable community. I could put my energy toward some environmental cause that would improve things with the environment. Or maybe I could put my energy toward a program for kids that was like a collaborative thing with schooling that would give kids better options for school. There's so many different creative visions that wonderful, inspired people would oftentimes go be part of if they didn't have to work from 9 to 5. I think that's sort of one of the hopeful visions associated with UBI. Now, can we do UBI without causing massive inflation or crashing the economy in other ways, or giving too much power to the people with the purse strings on UBI? Well, I'll talk about that at the end of the video, but I think the answer is we don't know. But another worry I have about UBI is that the people's basic income essentially is going to give them the scraps of the economy. Like if you're living at a bare sustenance level, you can go to the cheapest grocery stores, which may not have the healthiest food or the most environmentally friendly food, and you're kind of getting the goods produced by an economic infrastructure that richer people determined. And this notion of economic infrastructure, where the infrastructure is sort of like what is the set of roads and machines and factories and digital infrastructure such as platforms, all of that stuff that makes up the base level of the economy that on top of which we can produce any kind of output in a given time period. That infrastructure matters a lot. And yet the decisions about what infrastructure to build are going to be built with richer people in mind. Because if we think about the one person, one vote versus $1, one vote mechanism of building infrastructure, most economic infrastructure, or a large share of it, is $1, one vote, which weighs more heavily toward people with a lot of money to spend. And then even one person, one vote, I would say, no, that's not really what's going on, even when it's the government determining infrastructure, because it's more the people who are making the decisions about that infrastructure in the government. It's more those bureaucrats and their notions of what should be created as the economic infrastructure based on their social circles and the salience frame that they think about when they look at the economy. So most of those decisions are not made by people who are living with a bare sustenance income. So I started doing this thought experiment where I thought, what if we magically found ourselves in a place in the future when we actually thought UBI was economically realistic? Don't know if that's possible, but this is a thought experiment. Would there be a better way of structuring this whole system that could actually empower some of these grassroots social causes, grassroots social endeavors that were distributed across the population, as opposed to concentrated with the power of the financier class? And the idea that came to me was basically this. It's that, okay, if we have UBI set up to give people, but we said, actually, you don't get the UBI without doing something. And what that something is that to get 1/3 of your UBI payment, what you have to do is you have to show up to a grassroots cause for an hour and a half a week. And the hope here would be that by sort of forcing this level of commitment of people to show up to these causes that these grassroots leaders have, you give those grassroots leaders power of sort of commitment, power of the groups of people that they could actually lead. Because, I mean, one problem that I'm thinking a lot about is these grassroots leaders end up spending so much of their time trying to get the volunteers to just show up, that they're not investing that creative energy in the bigger vision of their cause. And that causes these grassroots movements to lose momentum. So if the UBI was designed as a way of empowering grassroots leaders across the country who led causes that people would vote with their time, they would vote with their feet, with their work energy to these causes, like showing up for an hour and a half a week, that is not trivial. And you're not going to do that unless it's a cause that you truly believe in. So I'm kind of envisioning some of these causes being, sustainable community gardens, or being educational places for, high school kids to learn certain skills. Or maybe it's going to be places where families can come and build their family values or family dynamics. Like, it would be lots of different sectors of the economy with different values that different subpopulations have. But they could empower the leaders of the causes they care about by showing up to work for them for just a little bit a week. And then you could expand this. You could say, okay, if there are causes that need money to thrive, like need more money to thrive. And here I'm imagining, for example, a scientific endeavor that was trying to come up with, a green technology that would, use solar power or use wind power in a different way that was more broadly usable, something like that, or something that would clean up microplastics in water. Like, if you're trying to develop engineering products in your little startup community or grassroots community, maybe that actual endeavor would need a little bit more money. But if you had scientists who were willing to donate their hour and a half a week to get their UBI to that green cause, then maybe there was some kind of mechanism for determining where these startup groups got more funding. So the basic idea is that, okay, and if we're playing around with 1 person, 1 vote, $1, 1 vote, this is kind of like 1 work hour, 1 vote for the building of the economic infrastructure. Because I think a lot of these grassroots causes would be building economic infrastructure, which includes digital infrastructure like platforms, and it includes social infrastructure, like the relationships that get built through these organizations. And it gets around what I'm calling the grassroots leader's dilemma, which is the lack of commitment that people have to these grassroots causes. It sort of gives them that commitment that will allow them to actually have legs and have a little bit of real working power to the causes that they care about and that they're trying to envision. And one more piece of the puzzle is that I don't think Lone Ranger individuals can solve some of these deeper societal problems. Like one artist or one environmentalist or one, family values person or whatever, individually they can't accomplish much. Like when people get together in groups, they are so powerful in a way that sort of magnifies the power of each individual within the group. And yet, groups can't function unless they have sticking power and commitment to each other, unless they're willing to work through the conflict that's inevitable when groups work together. So I think any vision of the future of the economy needs to account for that and needs to have some other way of creating the sticking power for addressing these societal problems at the grassroots level in a way that brings groups together and forces commitment to some degree. Now, I recognize the devil's in the details here. Like, how do you get that 1/3 of your UBI payment by showing up to that cause? And, there's lots of problems that would have to be administrative problems with administering something like this. But I'm really just playing around with ideas here.